What's up, guys? So I know Chicago has been on your minds significantly over the last, at least 2 months. For some of you guys, a little bit longer than that. And, I know you're starting to wonder, are these things a coincidence? Just because, I'm from Chicago. A lot of people who have been silenced and are finally coming back to the scenes are from Chicago. So just like that, you've been seeing Chicago and hearing about Chicago, thinking about Chicago a lot, which you should be. You're also going to start to think about Oklahoma. That's where I've been for the last 8 weeks. And, it's just these are just places that God takes me in faith. Why I came to Oklahoma was because of the first unit that I looked at was actually, really nice. It had a pool, a gym. I've been out of the United States for a little while, so I was excited to have some of those amenities that, I could only afford in, Thailand, because those things are very expensive in Chicago, where I would prefer to live and, fight a war against my enemies. Just through my voice, maybe not an actor or a model these days, but definitely, a media personality like I used to be. But it's very expensive. If you want to have a pool and want to have a fitness gym inside of your residence, you're going to have to spend a little money. And rent in Chicago is about double of what it was about 7 years ago when I left Chicago. So that's because they've been subsidizing the housing for immigrants. They've been giving them about $6,000 per family, and they've been using that system to just buy a whole lot of different things, live in areas that typically they've never been before, which by default, as a chain reaction, displaces Chicagoans trying to, build their own lives there as well. So I know Chicago has been top of mind because I can see the different influencers and podcasters have been talking about Chicago, and a lot of the slander and the propaganda against Chicago from top to bottom, the slander against its cleanliness and it's, just a murder capital, and there's no sophistication there in any of its South Side black residents, which is the, exact opposite of truth. So there's reasons why, certain things have been repetitively forced out there through me specifically. I'm not going to say any other people because I'm the only person I know that owns hundreds of Instagram pages and has owned large marketing networks, privately owned through, methods that I have, created since 2012. So, that's the reason why I'm able to get a message out there. I've been doing more written messages or product messages, but now I'm going to start helping you guys understand the transgression of, my own understanding within a prophecy that, I don't have to necessarily speak in prophetic terms or biblical terms to be able to guide, we say the chosen remnant, or, the people who have avoided all those deceptions. They've already begun to sell off all their belongings. And these are biblical concepts, but they are also just first step moves for anybody who is trying to escape something and follow the plan of something different than the world. So of course, if you don't want that white picket fence anymore in a burning house, you're going to have to make some changes. And the less chains that you have to anything, in resident, people have been selling off their homes because they've been expecting the rapture. These are just top news stories, and there's a reason why, only after I've been in Oklahoma, you've seen Speed, who was just in Oklahoma randomly trying a Brahms burger. These are things I didn't even know existed, a month and a half ago until I went to Stillwater and stayed there for a month, and now I'm in Oklahoma City. I wanted to do this video because I was thinking, you guys don't understand what a Chicagoan understands, especially for me. I went to that event I showed you guys with the Native Americans last week it was, and that was all the way in Tulsa, which is a little bit farther away from Oklahoma City, but I drove down there and I was just, surprised. I almost said flabbergasted, but I just decided not to. I was surprised to see how small Tulsa's downtown, not only their downtown area was, but by the scope of the event that they had. It was their summer festival, their 918 festival, And literally everybody sees me, and I'm running into the same people the whole time. I'm walking around like a square block. I'm like, damn, this is your whole downtown event. Like, as a Chicagoan, like if we were to have the Taste of Chicago, which was historically our event that we always looked forward to, and when the Taste of Chicago came, we knew that the Jazz Fest and the Blues Fest were right around the corner. So that's when you started to, your mind started to tick about, summer fun and things like that, which they messed up the schedule on that when they got rid of the Taste of Chicago for a few years, a while ago, and has never recovered because of the schedule conflict in the Chicagoans' brain. That was, I think, during Rahm Emanuel's time, Obama's transplant, who was like that whitewashed. He looks like a Greek dude, definitely an immigrant. Like, you won't see anybody like Rahm Emanuel as a native Chicagoan anywhere. And if you do, they probably have family members who are Chicagoans, but they themselves are recently immigrated. And I would assume that Rahm Emanuel is of that standard. But the scope of the size of Tulsa threw me off, to say the least. I couldn't believe that, it was just within a few different blocks, and I just kept running to the same people. Their entertainment didn't have any talent to it. There was one girl on the violin who was dope, but then they kept going to like children's little performances. And remember, this is just me in a random place as the most random person in that entire event. And people noticed it. They're like, bro, like, what are you doing here? But people were very, very friendly. So you're going to start to see Oklahoma. Now we've got a shooter, a shooter from Oklahoma. And the Oklahoma folks are saying that in all schools are going to have Turning Point USA chapters. So, nobody was thinking about Oklahoma 2 months ago before I arrived, were they? Can we at least admit that much? Just like, when I left Philippines, all of a sudden Speed shows up in the Philippines. What's with the Speed, dude? Are you following me, Speed? Do you have like a secret page or something? Because I really don't broadcast things like that, because I'm just here in faith to make a few judgments of the people here. I don't really interact with too many people except for like random people at like Golden Corral. Motherfuckers just talking to me like, hey, what's up, bro? Where you from? I see that. I wear this Chicago Pope shirt. And be like, you from Chicago? I'm going down there for business. Just like, because most of the people out here in Oklahoma City, like the Golden Corral, for instance, it's all Mexican. With a scattered few little whites, scattered few little blacks, and that's Oklahoma City. Tulsa seemed a little bit more black and white with less Mexican. I've only been to Tulsa twice. Once to buy a car, that BMW, and then the second time to go to that festival. And I bought this Tulsa Wall Street shirt, like official from one of the vendors there at that little festival. So, it did what I needed it to do, but on a very, very tiny, tiny level. And there's nothing developed in Oklahoma. Like, you go to Oklahoma City for some fun, there's nothing to do. I mean, you could go to a little restaurant or something like that, but as far as like a visual appealing type of thing, don't get me wrong, like the tumbleweeds and the ranch style homes, the single story flats, all this stuff is beautiful, especially when you look out over the whatever you would call it, the plains, or the traditional Southwest imagined, in our heads, imagine that with like a prairie or something like that with tumbleweed. Or haystacks, lots of horses, lots of cows, and large ranges, beautiful homes and things of that nature, which would be a beautiful place to raise a family if you just wanted to get out and like, have a beautiful landscape in the nature type of scene, like a wooded scene. But as far as like the development of they're downtown and stuff like that, there's nothing. There's a dispensary on every block. There are lots and lots of, I don't know if they're homeless people, but they're definitely junkies. And I'm not talking about just weed heads. I'm talking about like junkies, because I smoke weed. But where I'm talking about maybe heroin or something, or crack or crystal meth. That's what I get the sense of. And I see a lot of people overlooking it. I've seen even a few comments, because now Oklahoma content is directed at my phone, and people are, oh yeah, there's no crime, there's no problems in Oklahoma. I'm like, bro, you do not see all these homeless people, and most of the homeless here are white. I've seen a couple of black homeless, but I see a lot more, just regular black folks. I don't know what they would do for a living. I haven't had like a conversation with them like that. I know one was a truck driver. I talked to him at Golden Corral. He's a truck driver. He was there with his lady or his wife, and he was cool. He kept calling me Chi-Town, and we just talked. We were like the only two black people in a whole restaurant full of Mexican families, and they probably looking at like, how do these niggas know each other? Like the two niggas in the whole restaurant know each other. But I had just talked to him in the line on the way in. Like that's what I'm saying. Like foundational black Americans, like real ones, we don't have the house nigger tendencies of like an African immigrant. We are free people. People can be like upset that we're living within the light in a restaurant. We're not just like, living in Thailand, you could be in a restaurant full of like dozens of Europeans. You see mouths moving, but you don't hear a peep. And it's just like, bro, that is the opposite of Chicago. And I'm not trying to be like that. I'm not trying to be like that, conform to the world. And that's why I say, like, a lot of my leadership within prophecy and is based off of definitely my design, because I really don't give a fuck about opposition to what I already know is the light, and what can manifest into great creative outpourings and projects and just getting things done. Like I can just get things done like that because it's not just that I don't care. It's like I've grown up in environments where you prove yourself at a young age in your work ethic, and then you build things, and then you compete against other people who build things. And so if you are a better builder or a better strategizer in general than other people. So operating in the light is knowing that you have the ability to do something if you put, it's just not just like put your mind. The people who try to copy that standard, they think, oh, I can just put my mind to it, but really it has to be naturally inspired. So that means that your environment does create it allows you to create what's your environment, like the vibe of it allows you to create. It's easier to create when you have your own space and your own, in an environment that you like, that, you don't have to worry about what other people would think about it. So yeah, you all are gonna start seeing Oklahoma, and if you're denying that still while I'm here randomly, you are already one of the people who are lumped in with the goats. Actually, Yeshua can only lump you in with the goats, but you're one of the people who are lumped in with the weeds. That's all I'm here to do, is separate the weeds from the wheat. You know what I'm saying? Like under that standard that I know is of the light. So if you can't even admit now, after all of the transgressions of prophecy, we've got some angels on the way, by the way. I don't have to explain these things to you as a prophet. I don't have to beat a dead horse while everybody is resonating what I have told you guys through the written word. And I have the receipts for these things now. I have the receipt. I always do these things before other people of light are drawn to these places. Speed drawn to Oklahoma over Kansas and Missouri and, Kentucky. And I almost went to Kentucky this month, by the way. If I had went to Kentucky, all people of light would have been focused on Kentucky for whatever reason. If I had wanted to go to North Carolina or South Carolina, those were two other destinations on my road trip list. I decided for Oklahoma City this month to give Oklahoma one last little try. And it's cool, you know, like I've had good interactions with people. It's a little weird. People drive very weird here. I don't do clubs. I don't do like bars and clubs like that because I just don't fuck with everybody anymore. I'd rather be by myself. But, you know, so it's cool that there are no clubs and all that stuff here. Like I'm not putting Oklahoma down. It is very underdeveloped. I was thrown off by, you know, your downtown in Tulsa and your small downtown in Oklahoma City. The people, you know, there's some interesting concepts that I've only learned while being here as well, especially about, you know, the welfare. And, you know, this is where the first time I've seen that white welfare majority, where most of the whites here would be significantly less economically endowed than those in like a free state city where everybody has contributed, especially Black Americans in Chicago, where we've created a perfectionist standard where, you know, we can innovate and have a lot of tourist dollars and all those types of things where, you know, and you're also going to start seeing Florida. You're going to start to see those places which rejected my authority over their daughters and their sons, really, in mind, heart, and all these things. And you're going to start to see that them trying to do things without my representation, even Hollywood. You know, we both know that I was kind of that dude at one point, you know. Why don't I talk about that much? Because I gave up on Hollywood. Hollywood didn't give up on me. Okay, I had businesses. I had, you know, I'm traveling and stuff. You know, most of the Hollywood celebrities could not travel as much as I've traveled in the last 5 years or whatever. They couldn't have lived in the places that I lived to discover any of the things that I was able to discover in truth on an intellectual or a spiritual journey. And so I'm still within my realm of, you know, the top percentages within, you know, experiences and know-how and ability and things like that. So I'm cool. I've already done the Hollywood thing. I've already been places before everybody and their mama was an influencer. All right. So I've already proven myself in this. CBS flew me out on their own dime and put me up in Universal Studios. That was my second time in. I said I was never gonna go to Hollywood on that. Yo, hire me. No, bitch, you fly me out there. And that would be my first time in Hollywood. And that's what I already did. That was me in 2016 or something like that. So we're so far removed from that. And you see, now that sounds like a long time. We're talking about 9 years. But the reason why I exited Hollywood was because, you know, I wanted to maybe be your next Richard Pryor or your next goofball or something like that without them trying to control me and destroy me, paint me as some type of fucking criminal, even though I come from like the highest IQ environments in Chicago, which they had already allowed they had already created all the propaganda so that they could wipe out the black male sophisticated representation that my generation grew up watching on any Friday night on TV right after Full House. You know what I'm saying? So they tried to play it like we wouldn't, like some of us, all of us would forget what America used to be because they knew that a good amount of Americans never knew that stuff. They never watched those shows. They never knew what depictions had been purposefully written out of the American representation. So I dipped out of Hollywood and I said, you guys will collapse without me as the only beacon of light in my whole fucking generation. Because I am the Chicago standard. So that means you have to give me the roles that allow me to be myself, just as they allowed Jaleel White to be himself in his Urkel character. You can't direct something that you can't generate on your own. You aren't the generator. You are just the figurehead with the checkbook. And there were people who used to know that until they started slandering Cosby and destroying his legacy for people who also never grew up with his sophisticated, cultured American New York standard as their American dad in ways that only a real American would remember at a time when Mr. Drummond had 2 adoptee kids living with his white daughter, where they even taught him lessons, and he taught them lessons, and she taught them lessons, and then the maid taught them all lessons. You understand? These are all what you all know of as the American standard that they tried to bury and replace with immigrant, house nigger, Confederate contempt of black men from Chicago, black men from Detroit. These are the only hubs. You will hear about Detroit soon, but we're going to leave Chicago to some removal processes that I've already told you a bunch of times are going to have to happen. So Chicago's going to have some things so that kings can come back and get our inheritance that we have always deserved and we've always sacrificed and built to be able to inherit. Our enemies who are always arguing with us, our dumb Neanderthal Mexican enemies and Latino enemies, and all of them, all of these dumb species who just barely immigrated to places that some black people have had lineages since 1800. Chicago was founded in 1833. My grandma was born in 1909. Wait, am I getting that right? It's either 1909 or 1919. So her mother was born in the 1800s. And before that, they came from Tennessee. But there was nothing in Chicago before 1833. In 1833, it had 5 inhabitants. And one of them was its black founder. You guys are going to get this through your pea brains, whether you want to or not. It is that season. I don't have to speak on these things because there's so many other dope podcasters who are speaking on it. But what they can't speak on is things like Oklahoma, why Florida is collapsing, why you'll soon see Houston and all of Texas really just implode under their prides. The same for all of California, which is built off of many foreign, non-American value systems. Combined all in one, and then persecuting the black Americans there who have all turned into pretty much gangsters to try to fight against their enemies, just like Chicagoans. The only thing is that Chicago, once again, was a black founded city in a free state. So even before emancipation in 1876 or 1865, whatever it is, they had already established things that were industrial. Like my grandparents were building the thing. You see those nice ornate decorations in your buildings in Chicago? My grandma would have been one of those people painting those, living in the South Side in Inglewood before the white flight, before all the whites in the neighborhood fled out of the area because of their black fear of working black professionals at the time with families who grew up to be pioneers in their fields. Like they make it seem like we don't have multiple people in our family with college degrees or master's degrees who are in their 70s. Like what the immigrants just barely getting here and barely even getting into college. My mom graduated from University of Chicago or University of Illinois. That's like one of the most popular schools downtown Chicago. My dad, I couldn't tell you where he went but he's a pioneer in his field too. Both educators. Not too much different than Kanye West. You know what I'm saying? His situation with his mother. You have all of the examples to counteract all the propaganda that has just suddenly come. And I know where it comes from because I've been living around those people for the last 3 years outside of the United States. The European, mostly the person from the UK, who we get conflated with. People try to pretend like an American is the same thing as somebody from London when they can't even speak English, bro. You can't understand what somebody from London says. They don't express themselves in a competent way. So the only time that anybody in Thailand can understand English is when I'm speaking it. Like how come I can understand every word you say, but when he speaks, I don't know what the fuck this motherfucker's saying. Same thing in the Philippines. They could not understand the English that the people in the UK was speaking. I can't understand it, and I speak fluent English. And they couldn't understand that I'm the only person y'all have ever met from a competent free city, a free state, from a city metropolis. And they're like, oh, Chicago, pew pew, blah, blah, blah. Okay, motherfucker, the people with the pew pews got jobs. Y'all are fucking retards. They got jobs and they have guns because they're not fucking with all the people in their neighborhood. They got nice cars. People try to mess with them over their girlfriends, all types of stuff, man. These are not NPCs like the rest of the world. These are real people living amongst each other. And most of those blocks don't have any violence going on in it. There's like a few blocks in Chicago that you have to worry about things. And then there are entire neighborhoods of immigrants where you'll have to worry about things. Namely, Latinos, Hispanics, and Italians. Those are the areas you're going to have to watch your back in. The black areas, yeah, if you're fucking around doing some stupid stuff like selling drugs or something, well then yeah, you're probably going to have some issues too. You fucking idiot. But most Southside black Chicagoans, all we do is crack jokes with each other. That's our greeting. Like, what up, you motherfucker? You know, like, New Yorkers have their way. Chicagoans have our way. And nobody is poor on the south side of Chicago like somebody in Memphis or something. Like, these are free states, like, with innovative, long-standing family histories of hard workers who built those buildings that have insulation in between the walls that you enjoy so much and that the pipes don't burst even when it gets below zero. Nothing breaks in Chicago now, does it? Except for those new things that people are throwing up under a foreign standard. So Chicago's been on your mind. Oklahoma's been on your mind. Comment below if there's anything else been on your mind. There are going to be some new things like, look, when I came back to the U.S., I had just come off of a vacation period. The first vacation period I had in like years, you know what I'm saying? And before I came back, I knew I was going to have to work again. So I've only been back since, May? June, like the end of May or whatever. So just for the summer, and eventually I'm going to get up out of here again. But now it's like work. I mean, I've been exploring a little bit. When you move from location to location, which is what I had to do abroad, you know, like if I could stay in a place for 2 months straight living outside of the USA, I was doing good. Because look, that lifestyle is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the weak. It's not for the average. Whatever they tell you, you know, like if you see somebody living out there once you hit, really for the first month was hard. But once you hit like the third month in a row outside of America as an American, you have just crossed over into waters that only a tiny percentage of the world has done, as an American has done. You're amongst all Europeans at that point. Nobody speaks no English that you can understand unless you're in Kuala Lumpur, which I spent 6 months in. I didn't even document for y'all for that. I mean, I was in Kuala Lumpur in 2024 for the most part. Philippines for like 9 months. I didn't document hardly any of that either. That was 2024 to 2025. Shit, I was in Ethiopia for 3 months straight. I barely documented that. You know, I did a little bit documenting in Thailand, but that was, look, if I was documenting all that shit as the first person out there doing that shit, come on, man. Like, it's too much brain power in that. Like, what visa, what can I do a land run and, you know, get back in for how many days? When's the next border run I have to do? Do I have to get a flight? All these things, like each month you have to worry about that type of stuff. Oh, is this apartment, they're raising the rent. Oh, okay, I got to move to this city. I want to check this city out. So now I got to look for a new place. You know, it really is a two-person type of job that I did while managing my businesses. And, you know, that's why I came back. Living in the USA, I don't have to worry about the visa runs. All I have to do is just work and just go where I want to go or where God sends me, which is the only reason why I'm in Oklahoma. And that's the only reason why y'all been hearing about Oklahoma. Now, I've been laying low. Some of y'all saw me in some of them places, like, you know, in Thailand, and just like, man, fuck these people. Like, I ain't really, getting into it with people and stuff like that. Oklahoma, I'm just chill. Like, I don't go nowhere, and if I do, it's just get some food, and I have good interactions with people. Everybody here, for the most part, is good. I've had some weird interactions in an Uber to go look at this RV. I didn't buy it. I put a video here of that. The lady in the Uber was trying to preach to me of all people. I'm like, bitch, if you don't just get me to my destination, I'm a curse. I'm not even supposed to curse people. That's what I'm saying. Listen, if I'm not even supposed to curse y'all motherfuckers. I'm not even supposed to. Lord, forgive me. And there's a bit of imagine if the grace was in the hands of one disenfranchised dreamer who wished that he could rule and reign with his enemies if they knew their place within the kingdom beneath me. I wish that I could shine the light on them so they can preserve life and develop a love for the light outside of the plantation, outside of the house nigger aspirations to be like people who have no light, have no saltiness, have no truth. But, there comes a time where, grace is suspended and expired for those people who are happy with, the conformity of Neanderthal Gentile pride. And it's a different species. And we can, there's a reason why I'm a prophet in understanding that and growing up around the Neanderthal, having, and when I say Neanderthal, I'm talking about like the descendants of the Nephilim. So these are people who are descendants of fallen angels who have mated with women. So they have no truth in them. They are contemptuous of the truth. They have no consciousness. Therefore they have no conscience. And all their being is to scoff at truth and call a chosen hierarchy as false. That's all that they're about. And that's the reason why the movies, Matrix, the series, and also Idiocracy go hand in hand, because we actually are talking about the breeding practices of women, just like the movie Idiocracy, and how it prioritizes a design that mocks people who speak truth. Like the traditional jock. What we always avoided in my generation, because we were a very well-trained and cultured generation where we watched a lot of TV shows, where we saw what happened when you bullied Steve Urkel. We saw Steve Urkel eventually get the girl that he wanted. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not just all about quick results or about never facing adversity. So that's another reason why, as I'm the last generation that'll be able to lead you to that salty standard of not giving a fuck what another kingdom wishes to do to you, and still live within light and faith under my faith. So there are other prophets and there are other men of faith, there are other priests of faith, but they have not ventured to the places that I have ventured during the tribulation, where I should have never had to leave America when all truth turned into pride and all pride turned into truth. All truth tellers, of a certain skin color from a certain city, Chicago, were all slandered as criminals and dummies. And, and every time we spoke intelligently, like my Jesuit, private, high IQ, high tested, gifted Hogwarts collegiate graduate. I don't even care about my college degree, because that was University of Missouri is a school for slow folks compared to like gifted elementary academia. So yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that. But so you got Oklahoma, you got California, Las Vegas, another place that I lived and I passed a judgment on, but that was actually before I moved to Houston. So all these places that you're going to see fall are places that I visited, and some places you don't have to live there. You can just visit and see, okay, well, damn, this place ain't nothing like the rest of America. Like, it's all evil folks. you know, just like in Lot's time. And, you know, you could try to go out there and be like, okay, let me find somebody with some light or who has a good reception. Not everybody has the light, but some people are at least drawn to the light without, you know, trying to put a lampshade over it. They just want to be there, you know? Get the free perks, get the free meals that come with the being around the king, which is what people used to understand about what swag at a Chicago level looks like when they still had a relationship with the kings who lived like that. So, or who, I'm not trying to live like that. Shit, I increase your value when I'm around you. If I want to shine my light. Now, sometimes I don't have to shine my light. I'll just leave. That is the new reality. We just leave and we stay away. But all people of light are drawn to the places that I go to first, especially in this season, fall harvest season. You're going to start seeing that word in ways that you've never seen that word before. Now, we didn't have Thanksgiving every year since what? The 1500s or 1400s? 1500s probably. And harvest has always been a part of the season and thankfulness. But has harvest, the word harvest, or the word reaper, has it ever been just drilled in your head as much as it is this season? And that's the reason why I changed my business from Blessed Camp to Chosen Harvest. I had already locked in the Chosen, because the reason why I started Blessed Camp in 2017, because that was during Jezebel's height of her reign. Or actually, that was the beginning of her reign. She's like, oh, I hate it when people say that they're blessed. They just be saying that shit. This is at a time I was trying to challenge them on taking photos with their shirts off. Girls taking photos, free the nip. And they started turning it against me while I was already like at the top of the game. Nobody else was doing what I was doing at that time. You know, there was no Andrew Tate at that time. There was no Candace Owens. It was me, nigga. Fuck you, what you're talking about. London the Lion, and you guys remember it. And I did that shit exquisitely. This page I'm talking to y'all on now is my second main page. I had a real main page where I was that nigga. And I started your natural hair movements. I started every movement that took over the internet that Black Jezebel took credit for. So that's where we are now. And you're going to start hearing Chosen Harvest, Reaper, the season of the Reaper, removing the weeds. That's what the Reaper's job is. The angel of death is to remove the weeds which were sown by Satan among the chosen harvest of wheat. And the wheat is bundled and taken into the barn, while the weeds are gathered and tossed into the fire. So these are the weeds that were sown amongst the chosen wheat by Satan and by the enemy, Black Jezebel, and the Democrat Party, who welcome, and it's really Republicans too, that welcomed all of our enemies who were working on all their farms and stuff. They really just voted for Donald Trump to fuck with us. But with guys like me, who are truth tellers that oppose their truth tellers by design and by speech and by, Charlie Kirk, there's no coincidence that he calls himself a Chicagoan, but he's a suburbanite. So now you see why real Chicagoans of the highest intellectual caliber gatekeep our city, of the highest foodie standard. We gatekeep our city for valid reasons, because we have imposters from outside of the city who are just like those people from the UK, who are just as contemptuous, living out an hour away from the city, never come into the city. They lie and say they come. They do not come into the city. They didn't race cars from their house to high school so that they didn't get they called our detentions justice under God at my high school, jugs. Racing down Western Avenue at 120 miles an hour at 16 years old. They didn't live these city lifestyles. They didn't work at a top law firm like I did at the age of 15 on a work permit, a top criminal law firm in the heart of city of Chicago, just like where my high school was. They didn't go to private Jesuit schools that they had to test to get into, that only a fraction of the people who apply get into, that from my middle school, which was also a gifted school, Morgan Park Academy, they all tried to get into my high school too, but it was only a few of us who made it. Me and one of my best friends, who happened to be white, who tossed me under the bus as soon as we got to high school. Because I wasn't one of the cool kids. I was short, I was fat, and I had Coke bottle glasses as young Sheldon. He's apologized for that, by the way, and he's forgiven. But none of your opinions matter, especially not those people from Oklahoma, y'all small ass little towns and stuff like that. Like y'all lucky I don't roast y'all ass. And see, I don't really talk like this in my Chicago roast accent, but I could, and because I do it to Chicagoans. That's why gangsters on the street know not to fuck with me, because they know I got the gift of gab and I can tear them apart. I could eviscerate them, and most of those, the YNs, they have exquisite vocab. They didn't go to the best schools like I did, but somehow they try to make it seem like Chicago public schools, based off of the Latino areas, like, you know, like that Chicago public schools, like black youth don't know how to speak English. They would understand everything that I say in ways that people down south be like, huh? What? Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all don't know what a Neanderthal sounds like? Come on, y'all. How stupid are you people? Chicagoans, boy, gangster, King Von himself would have known not to come nowhere near me, boy. And I got I'm talking about as far as just on the gift of gab. I'm not talking about if we had some beef on some music, and I'm just talking about like, nigga, what you looking at? Why you being like that? You know, like he would start laughing, bro. And I have cousins who would tear me apart, all right? So even though I don't come from the hood, I am the Chicago standard, best of both worlds. It's the only standard that matters as you all are growing to understand. And we're starting to see that Oklahoma don't matter at all. And I'm sure that's why Speed got his little ass up out of this bitch. Just like I'm going to be up out of here in a couple of weeks. But look, I'm not trying to shit on Oklahoma. It's a great family-oriented community. And the people here are doing well economically besides the junkies walking around. And, you know, they are outnumbered significantly. The junkies do not make up the majority here. But they do have some things they can work on if they're going to take the log out of their own eye. All right, y'all. Just wanted to check in with y'all. I know y'all seen 3IA Atlas. Y'all wondering what that boy is too. So you'll soon find out. It's so many things. There's so many things. I only came on here to talk about the Oklahoma thing because I was be like, yo, I told y'all, like, I am that boy. I am that dude. I ain't Malcolm X. I ain't even James Baldwin. Muhammad Ali would have had a problem with me, boy. I'm telling you. We're in a new era, a new king, and a new kingdom has been issued, and Trump operates under my authority. As you can see, MAGA people relied just as much on illegal immigration as did Black Jezebel to try to justify her dating habits and throwing black men under the bus. Which when I by the way, when I talk about the isolation period, which all priests have had to do, which does deal with years of celibacy, as long as you can, you know, because you're trying to stay away from your enemies so you don't choke the fuck out these bitches. That's really what that's really what real priesthood and the strongest men of faith and the separation comes out of. Okay, I have to get away from you retards, you Neanderthal immigrant, like NPC, whitewashed, colonized, dumb, from dumb cultures and dumb religions, trying to integrate into a country that was built off of black Christianity, black Chicago Christianity, and maybe New York and Chicago gangster Italians, huh? Guys, you have to submit to the people who were grown up consuming American medias of a righteous, creative intent, just like I gathered my remnants, and throughout my business, through fashion and products that shone like the light against all the other copiers that came in. There was nobody doing what I was doing in 2018, 2017. There were no other brands, period. All your little fitness brands and stuff like that, that popped up out of my first brand, Swag Fit Social, that I started in 2014 because I was already in fashion. Come on, guys. Why is it so hard to believe that that boy from Chicago is that dude? It's because you've all been subjected to mass deceptions against specific cities like Chicago and Detroit, and therefore you're only left with the Confederate, which is envious and contemptuous. And the Confederate had always been immigrated from the UK, even in the, the 1600s. That's where it came from. That is the Neanderthal design. They're contemptuous of a native bronze, copper design of truth, which was already in America. It was already in America. It was already niggas that looked just like me in America when they got here. And they called us Native American. Some of us had really straight hair. Some of us had like little locks and stuff and curly hair, just like my hair, which I'm picking out now. Which I guess I should have done at the beginning of this video. But yeah, guys, whatever the next destination I go to, you'll see Speeds bring his little goofy ass. I love Speed, by the way. Even though I was kind of like the first Instagram, influencer back in 2012, and I started the natural hair movement. Those people who were there, they remember that. And then I started working on different TV shows as the, that up and coming dude. But this was before Michael B. Jordan and all that. Like he was already working, but with the big hair and like, swag out photos, the Chicago swag. That was Derrick Rose, right after Derrick Rose's run. He was still probably still running with us. There wasn't that contempt against Chicago at that time. Y'all came up with all that shit during Obama's reign. Because he's not one of us. And a lot of the contempt was geared towards him, and it just trickled down, and then our women started dating. Then the synagogue of Satan from Israel began to market propaganda because they own all of the marketing conglomerates, which I know because I'm a marketing CEO, an underestimated marketing CEO since 2012, with stocks in my own shit. Like, y'all not on my fucking level, man. Y'all gonna have to understand that, the American standard is a lot more humble. We went off for 7 years to let y'all say, okay, do it without me then. Fuck ass nigga. I'm so brash. I'm so narcissistic. Okay, you start your own clothing brands then too. You create your own corporations. You build Hollywood. Hollywood is collapsing now by not empowering me as maybe the next, big name at a time when they were considering me for that. And I had friends all throughout Hollywood. At my Christmas dinners, like their family, like, like relatives, like people who, if I was to say their names, like you'd be like, oh shit, that you knew him? Like, yeah, we go out to dinner all the time, just on some like family stuff. Like, but I gave all that up because, well, they already had their select few little, Kunta Kintes that they wanted to replace us with. And black women were all with it. They bought into every single little deception to spite me and humble me. When I'm sitting here to humble you, bitch. Always have been. Always that black lesbian that I'm forced to do some stupid ass Southside program with that's not one of my gifted classes. Like these fucking black lesbians and feminists. I never knew I would have to fucking kill y'all by the millions through prayer. I never knew it would have to come to that. But here we are. And some nigga just got murked in Texas. I hear, he has some stuff scribbled on the bullets. They always scribble the shit on the bullets. Like, what kind of minds are we dealing with, guys? They're scribbling shit into bullets. They're scribbling shit in the bullets. And then they didn't even hit, they said anti-ICE. And then they hit the detainees. They killed 2 detainees, but they're anti-ICE. So they just fired indiscriminately at the van. Guys, we've been living in the idiocracy, and it took me years living abroad to realize who created the idiocracy. Where did this shit all of a sudden come from? Oh, it was like this my whole life? Oh, it was the fucking Neanderthals. And then and as the only non-Neanderthal or non-house nigger, non-Jezebel, or my mom was just like, my mom, she's like me a lot, but she does not tell me not to do something. I've taken on school systems by myself while she's paying exorbitant amounts of tuition. So I want to thank you, Mom, for allowing me at a young age to take down teachers and entire school systems who wanted to get me the fuck up out of there, just like they wanted to get young Sheldon out of there. And we're back around to this. It's just back the idiocracy of the fucking Neanderthal. Now we got Latino Neanderthals and Hispanic Neanderthals. Oh, you nigga, you don't know Chicago culture, like, bitch. You are. Now I've learned that the 5th generation and longer. Okay, I guess we cool. They have spent so much money with my businesses, like the 5th generation Mexicans and shit. Yeah, okay. But the 2nd generation Mexicans and Latinos, fuck y'all. You about to die, bitch. All right? And I've warned you, you gotta shut your fucking mouth, and I don't give a fuck what Black Jezebel says. She was never in those top environments, and she is not as smart as she thinks she is. That's why she needed those Harvard degrees after they took away the testing requirements. Later, y'all.